Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast live. Special, what is this? Wednesday afternoon, college football playoff edition. And joining me is my good friend and special guest and host of the Always Irish Notre Dame Football Podcast to discuss the college football playoff and, of course, all things Notre Dame football, John Kennedy. John, what's going on, my man?
There's a lot going on. This has been a wild journey, especially this playoff run with Notre Dame has been a high anxiety, high emotional output situation for the last month. And here we are, one game left, man. Notre Dame is one of the two teams left standing. I think there is some pride in the fact that it's Northern, old school, cold weather teams that are, I know you're SEC beef, and you don't have any of that. This is some old school Northern hard nose, brand name helmets, silver and gold. This is what it's about, baby.
All the storylines play out, and we are going to get to all of that in just a second. As you can see from the rundown, we're going to start off discussing the 12-team playoff in its inaugural season. We'll then jump to rumors of Marcus Freeman and NFL teams having serious interest in him, as well as finally we'll finish it out with discussing the national championship game between the Buckeyes and the Irish. But before we get to all that, you know what time it is. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept aware anytime we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you enjoy the content as you listen, make sure you give us a like, a 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And write it down, put it in your phones, make a note of it. The Format Podcast is live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And finally, if you're really and truly enjoying the podcast and you want to help the show continue to grow, make sure you go ahead, click that join button, join the channel. We're going to have some exclusive content just for you. All right. So let's get right to it, man. So John, let's start off. Before we even dig into Notre Dame, let's talk a little bit about the 12-team playoff in itself. And I just want to start off by saying, like, you've known me for a while now. What is this? Maybe 2019, 2020, somewhere around there, right? It's been a while. And so I've been railing for playoff expansion for some years now. That's always been a thing for me, right? And originally my ideal was about an 8-team playoff, and that would have been my sweet spot. And when I found out they were expanding out to 12, I was really happy about that, because my thought had always been, why aren't they expanding? We know how much money there is to be made off of an expanded playoff. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, the powers that be, they don't want the SEC to get too much pushback from the other conferences, the other parts of the country. And as well, the powers that be don't want one of the, they don't want an upstart to upset the apple cart when it comes to this thing, right? Which realistically I always thought was stupid, because if you had that happen, it would bring even more eyes to the sport and so on and so forth. And even more so, when you have this expanded playoff, you have more of a national interest in the game, right? All these years, as popular as college football is, when you have constantly either, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, there's a part of the country where that's obviously going to dominate, but the rest of the country doesn't really care that much, right? And the ratings used to bear that out. But now we have so much more of a national interest in this game. And of course, now you see 2 years in a row, the Southeastern Conference, the mighty SEC, has not played for a championship and will not. And I think that's very interesting. So before we even get started, what are your thoughts overall on the expansion?
Yeah, I think, listen, money talks, and the more games you have in the postseason, the more money there is in the pie for everybody. That is what it is. If you want to talk about, like, some of these playoff games weren't that competitive, something like that. Are you not entertained? Even the games that ended up not being close, everybody was watching them. And you end up with this scenario where if it was just a 4-team or something, are we thinking Ohio State, Notre Dame even have a chance to be included and go all the way. I'm not sure how those rankings would have been. And then you ended up with these two teams winning their way through the playoff and fighting their way to the top. And so they're going to expand again, Bruce. It's too much money not to. Like, they are. They're going to go to 14, whatever. Like, they're going to. And so it's my interest was, Bruce, I was saying, Notre Dame has not won a major bowl game in 30 years. Why should I think they're going to win 4 in a row? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you haven't won one in 30 years. Why would I think you can win 4? Bruce, they're 60 minutes away from winning 4. So what the hell does Always Irish know?
No, I'm absolutely with you, John. And honestly, I'll say this, right? So there were some blowouts early on, right? Let me see. Where's the bracket?
You're going to have that, I think. There's even within the 12-team field, you're going to end up with a couple teams. Now, do you think they're going to revisit these auto bids? And that's something on my mind too is,
they will.
Are they going to adjust some of this to where some teams that clearly are not of the caliber to deserve an auto buy and a top seed? That's something I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do with.
No, they're going to adjust that, man. There's been too much complaints about it. I will say I agree with it. Just keep it simple. Don't come up with some convoluted formula. Make it very simple. The top 4 auto bids. That's it. That's it. The top 4. None of this automatic for conference champions and all that, because that's where it gets weird. Because I was trying to figure out for the longest, like, as these ratings were coming out, I'm looking at it weekly. I'm looking at it and say, okay, this is where Notre Dame could fall and this is who they could play. But I kept forgetting the rankings for the college football playoff wouldn't necessarily match the seedings. And that was, really annoying to me. So let's do away with that. Just do the top 4, get the automatic buys in a 12-team situation. But the other problem is, where does Notre Dame fall in that? Because being that Notre Dame obviously is the major independent and doesn't have a conference to play for, the way it's currently designed, they couldn't get a bye. And I'm sure everybody liked that. But if they do away with this, now what type of constraint are they going to put on Notre Dame? Because their whole thing is do whatever they can to try and push Notre Dame into a full conference affiliation. But you
could change that rule for everybody else except for Notre Dame, I guess. And you could say, Notre Dame, if you want to be in this, you still have the no buy tax. And so it'll be if you're in the top 4, then the 5th team gets that spot and Notre Dame bumps down. Like, they're still going to try and impose a no tax of some sort. And I think they will. Didn't hold Notre Dame back this year.
Pete Bavacqua says he doesn't care. He says we like our independence. I saw that quote from him just earlier this morning. I'm like, okay.
This season is proof of concept. Notre Dame does not need a conference to succeed. And you know what else is bothering me, Bruce? I'm seeing a lot of tweets take a number, right? There's a lot of things always bothering me. There's always something to yell at if you're paying close enough attention. All these people are losing their minds that Notre Dame gets this playoff money and doesn't have to share it with anybody. And they're going, how is that fair? Notre Dame doesn't have to share the money. But what nobody's including in their article or podcast is that is an all or nothing scenario. If Notre Dame misses the playoff, they don't get a share from anybody else. So
that's right.
It's Notre Dame betting on itself. And if they make it, they get all the money. And if they don't make it, you get 0 money. And that is the fairest way I could think to do it.
So you don't expect non-Notre Dame people to have some rational, objective viewpoint on something to do with Notre Dame, do you? That can't be
given up on that 30 years ago. And then the 8 or 9 years I've been doing my show have reinforced it. They're never going to get it. I'm fine with that. I don't want them to get it. You know, I'm taking heat today, Bruce, about speaking about spirituality and the religious connection of all this with Notre Dame and all that. And I'm taking some heat. People are like, this isn't even a football show. You're talking about all that stuff. Listen, man, if that doesn't hit you, it's never going to hit you. And I'm not going to convince you. I don't need anybody else to understand it. I know how this all connects in Notre Dame land, and I don't need anybody else to buy into it.
No, you're absolutely right. It's, man, I don't even know. It's just different. But yeah, this and not to let the conversation get sidetracked, but I've been trying to figure it out for the longest in my own freaking content, in the comments that I get, in discussions that I have with other people outside the Notre Dame circle, no one can give me a proper answer as to what is this obsession with Notre Dame joining a conference. The only thing I can come up with, you and I have talked offline about it, only thing I can come up with is that they all want Notre Dame to join their conference and bring that added notoriety, that added money, and that added fan base. That's what it is. Because there's no other rational reason. You don't like Notre Dame, fine. It's harder for Notre Dame because they're independent. Let's be real. So I don't know. These people, I shouldn't say these people, but the anti-Notre Dame crowd, there is just, I don't get it. I don't get it. But
here's
it's going to be
the other thing, Bruce. Here's the other thing. Anybody can go independent. I don't know. People speak
That's
like
right.
Notre Dame is this special only entity. If you think it's that much easier of a path and you think your school has the brand name cachet and the money to do it
That's
and
right.
can get their own TV deal, everyone could be independent. This is not Notre Dame specific. And if your answer of why you're not doing that is, well, we don't have the money, we're a regional brand, not a national brand, how are we going to have a TV deal? We wouldn't have the revenue. Not my problem. That you should have been better at football for 100 years and build up a national brand. Not our problem. That's a you problem. So anybody could be independent. If you think it's that easy, raise your own money to where you don't need a conference and do it. And if not, sorry.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. By the way, speaking of that, the independence and the TV deal and stuff, I just was reading an article the other day, I watched a YouTube video, and I did not know Notre Dame had a standalone TV deal in the 50s with ABC when college football first started getting televised, and there were actually rules in place to limit how much one particular team could be on TV, and they were, trying to keep it even, and they were also worried about live college football games having issues with gate, with people buying tickets to the games if they were too televised.
Yeah.
Somehow Notre Dame, even back then, had their own TV deal with ABC.
Man,
that was impressive.
That is impressive. But dude, it's not that long ago. I mean, my dad talks about when they were kids that most of the away games weren't on TV, and you pulled up the box radio and everybody gathered in the living room and you listened to them play USC on the radio. We're not that far removed from that.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, just looking at it, I'll say to put a bow on this topic, I have really enjoyed this 12-team playoff. I really have, just because, I love college football. I love football. I love sports for the most part. And just watching it and getting to watch all these great games, and also getting to see some players really do their thing that I hadn't gotten to see throughout the regular season, or I had neglected to look at. Like, you look at a guy like Scatterbull from Arizona State. He became a college football folk hero with his freaking performance against Texas.
I'd say the Penn State tight end. The Penn State tight end, too. That he became a national thing, too. Like, good for him.
He won the Mackey, but I don't think a lot of people really saw him play. But the guy's really, really good. I didn't know he was that good. I was like, wow, okay. And I'll say Penn State's OC, what's his name? Andy Kotelnicki. He did a really good job in scheming up creative ways to get a guy that big, the football all over the place. You would think you couldn't lose that guy, but somehow, the way they schemed it up, I was kind of impressed with that. So just some really good games overall. And I have really enjoyed it so far, and just the opportunity to see different players and different teams and stuff like that. It's been really good. And I don't know how, if you're a person that says you love college football, you could have issue with this 12-team playoff.
And
I really don't.
One more thing about this, and this is a lesson I've learned. I believe the days of that SEC supremacy thing are over, Bruce. I think the transfer portal and NIL is truly spreading out the talent. It used to be, Bruce, some of those top teams down south could compile a 2-deep of all 4 and 5 stars ready to, they're waiting their turn to get in there and all that. You don't have that anymore. So a lot of the top end depth, I see that being pretty similar. It's that when you get into, like, you got a couple injuries, you don't have a 5-star there waiting to pop in now the way you used to. The talent's getting dispersed in a way that is going to create a playing field in the new playoff where any team that gets hot can make a run. And who's going to say that's not great for the sport?
Right. Absolutely. So let's look at it this way, right? Let's look at Alabama, who demolished Notre Dame in the championship game back in 2013. Alabama had Mark Ingram, who won a Heisman. Then he had Eddie Lacy, who ran all over the Irish's #1 defense in that championship game. Then they had TJ and Eddie Lacy. Well, so first, Mark Ingram goes off to the pros. Eddie Lacy goes off to the pros. TJ Yeldon follows him. He goes off to the pros. Derrick Henry was sitting behind TJ Yeldon. He comes in, wins another Heisman. He heads off to the pros. Like, it was an assembly line. And the crazy part is we can't conceive of this now in today's college football atmosphere because of, as you said, transfer portal, NIL. Guys are not going to sit for multiple years. But Alabama had those kind of guys sitting for 2, sometimes 3 years, waiting for their opportunities. That's crazy.
It's all over. That is over. These guys that think they're good enough are going to take an NIL deal and go play. Like, it is. And you know what else, too? Credit to Notre Dame for finding a way to work this portal and all their stuff to where they're starting to get these guys with more than 1 year of eligibility. Pete Bavak was trying to make it so Notre Dame could do that. And all of those portal additions have contributed big time. And they're all good people, no attitude issues in the locker room, and they're good people. They're doing a good job with the portal while staying in our value system. Good job by Notre Dame.
Yeah. Really,
Alabama Jones.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And real talk, this is another thing I love. I know you don't necessarily consume a lot of the mainstream sports media. I consume a ton of it.
Bruce, I can't handle it, dude. It's too much. I watch these people that have not watched a lot of Notre Dame, and they're the experts about Notre Dame. I can't handle it, and I try and avoid it.
Well, we've had to talk. I watch a ton because, I cover more than just Notre Dame, but in general, I like to listen to a lot of different voices when it comes to the sports media. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting, one, that you're hearing so much respect among the mainstream sports media given to Notre Dame. And I think Marcus Freeman is clearly a huge cog in that. And we'll get to talking about him very shortly here. And then beyond that, we've got this situation where, what was it I was going to say? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But okay, I lost my train of thought on that. But it's really amazing to just see what Marcus Freeman has done and what he's been able to do. But we'll definitely see, what goes on from here. But let's go ahead and we'll move to the next topic. And this is one that's really got me kind of nervous. But hopefully he is, focused on what he's focused on. We're hearing a lot of rumors. Marcus Freeman, the Chicago Bears are adamant they want to interview him. I heard the Jets get thrown into that mix. I haven't heard any other specific teams named, but the general consensus is that he's getting a lot of attention from the NFL and their, teams in that league. And obviously that speaks to what people are seeing from what he's built at Notre Dame, what he's done specifically over this college football playoff run. Because obviously if he doesn't make this run, I don't think the NFL teams are looking at him the same way. But what are some of your thoughts on, obviously, Marcus Freeman? Obviously, we know how highly you think of him. I think we all do. But what are some of your thoughts on this? Because, well, more specifically, have you heard anything from which we can glean any whether or not Marcus Freeman has interest in coaching on the next level at this time?
I haven't heard anything about that behind the scenes. Oh, he's interviewing this. I haven't heard anything about that. Listen, here's what I think. Marcus Freeman is a special person. He is a very unique, special person. And I believe that right now he knows his God-given gifts would make the biggest impact on these young men in the college game. He is the perfect person to be a mentor for these young men about how to live a straight life, be a family man. He ain't even 40, so he's not that far removed from relating to these players.
Right.
I believe his special gifts and skill set could do the most change for the most people in the world as a college coach, and Notre Dame's the perfect fit for that. Now, down the road, I could see him wanting a different challenge, or as hot as he burns the recruiting oil all through the night, burning out on some of that down the road or whatever. But I just don't think we're here yet. And I think he's bought into accomplishing some big things at Notre Dame. And I think it could be a different discussion if he's got some trophies in the case, then maybe look at a different avenue after that. But right now, I just look at this stuff as distractions. And the one thing I'm going to push back on, I don't think this is meant to be in a bad way at all. But a couple people have mentioned to me, maybe this is some Rooney Rule thing, where you have to interview a minority candidate or whatever in your process. I really don't think that's the case. The Bears fired Eberflus and had a minority guy running the team. That guy's going to get the interview. That could be the Rooney Rule. I think it undersells. I think it's legitimate that people are buying into Freeman. So I don't think this is some Rooney Rule, bring a guy in to check a box. I think there's genuine interest because he's so young and has got Notre Dame cooking. But I agree. I think he's bought into the Notre Dame thing, and I don't think he hasn't accomplished what he wants to yet. And I just have a hard time seeing a guy built like Freeman totally abandoning that right after signing a mega deal through 2030 and bouncing. I have a hard time believing Marcus would do it, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
So I agree with you on that. And I think that as Notre Dame fans that we both want to believe that, but at the same time, there's the old adage, strike when the iron is hot, right? And I think that I would think, I could be wrong, but I would think that every coach who believes himself a high-level coach would want to coach at the highest level. And that highest level is obviously
I don't know if I believe it. I don't know if I believe that. I think there are certain guys that in their heart and soul, they're made to be college coaches. And I don't know if Freeman, to me, hits me as a perfect college coach, especially while he's younger and can relate to these guys. He hits me as a college coach. Kelly is way more of an NFL fit. Like the way he CEOs stuff and does it. I see Kelly as way more of an NFL. He don't like to recruit. Like he is way more of an NFL fit. Freeman's gifts are best served helping these college guys grow into mature family men in society. And I think Freeman himself knows that deep down. And maybe I'm wrong. Pull this up in a week and he's at the Bears and pull this up and throw it in my face.
Right.
He hits me as a college guy where his talents are best served. That's just my read on it.
No, I think I think I agree on that, but I think it's just it's hard to say that because again, if you have that opportunity and you have an NFL team that's willing to, give you the big money and pay your buyout, it's something to think about. It's always something you got to think about. And if you flame on the NFL to the point of his age, he's 39 years old. He's got plenty of time to come back to college and do his thing. Now, does that mean I see that happening? No. Does that mean that I don't believe that he believes he's found a home at Notre Dame and he wants to do something special there? No, I don't believe that, but you never know. Quick response to the comment. Bruce, what's up, man? I believe Notre Dame are beneficiaries of a college system and no true dominant college football team. See, Bruce, I know what you're doing, and I'm not going to allow you to do it. I know what you're doing, but here's the deal. Let's keep it simple. You can say that, but the fact is a 12-team expanded playoff doesn't allow any team to be a beneficiary of that because even if there was no dominant team all season long, once you get into the playoff, you have to play your way there, right? So let's say Notre Dame wins this championship, Bruce. They will have had to play 4 games to get there, and look who they would have had to have beaten. Indiana, top 10 team, number 1 rush defense, okay? Georgia, top 10 team, right? One of the best defenses in the country, the team that everyone said before the game that Notre Dame couldn't beat, right?
SEC champions, the big bad SEC champions.
That's right.
Hey, quarterback or not, big bad SEC roster, top 3 recruiting operation, the best head coach you could argue entering the playoff with skins on the wall. That's a big one to get.
Correct. Followed by Penn State, the Big Ten runner-up, another elite defensive team, another top 10 team, followed by Ohio State, who most people would say has the best roster in college football, spent $20 million on it during this past offseason and is playing the best right now in the country. If Notre Dame can get through all of that, it does not matter that there was no dominant team this season in college football. They will have earned it What are you talking about? What are you? Okay, so this is how I know you don't. This is how I know that you don't know anything about college football, Bruce, because Penn State had an elite offense all year long. Indiana had an elite offense all year long. Georgia, we're not going to say they had an elite offense, but most people are going to tell you SEC champion. That's all that matters, right? And then, of course, Ohio State has an elite offense, one of the best in the country. Come on, man. Stop it. I know what you're doing. I'm not going to allow you to do it, man. Don't come in here and lie. Do your research first. All right. So, yeah, John. So
Bruce, it feels really good to be able to sit back and let somebody else go at chatters. I'm like, this isn't my battle to fight. It feels really good for me to be able to kick back and let somebody else fight these battles I usually got to fight.
No, Bruce, is not about insulting your intelligence. It's about clearly you haven't done the research before you came in and said this stuff, because it's simply untrue. It's simply not true, but that's okay. Yeah, so back to Freeman to the NFL. So let's look at this from another angle, right? Let's say the nightmare happens for us Notre Dame people, and he decides to take the Bears job, whatever. He interviews with the Bears, and he takes that job. Have you even given any thought to who might be
Not one. No. I mean, you're playing in the biggest game Notre Dame's played in 30 years. I do not have the energy or the bandwidth in my brain to deal with a problem that isn't a problem yet. Like I'm so wrapped up in this playoff run and what's in front of us that I have not even acknowledged any of that for a second.
Right.
Because we're in too big of a moment now for this distraction. And so, listen, I understand why people want to talk to Freeman and whatever. That's fine. And like, okay, if Freeman leaves, Al Golden would take over. Changes the vibe of the entire program instantly. I love Al Golden. You're losing a lot of what made this year work with Freeman's younger energy, hip, modern, cool, younger, relates to the players. Al Golden has those guys respect, but the whole tone around everything would change because Al Golden is just not Marcus Freeman,
right? With
communication and vibes and all that. He's just not, man. And so the whole tone would change. He would have respect, but the whole tone would change.
No, that's agreed. I definitely agree with you on that. And so to be honest, full disclosure, that's not something I had thought about either. But as I was prepping to do this show with you, I said it would be remiss of me, putting on my journalist hat here to be interviewing you and not ask you that question. As one of the biggest and most popular Notre Dame podcasters.
I have no problem being honest. I have not considered it at all, given it one thought. I am so wrapped up in the opportunity in front of us. I do not have the brain width left to worry about problems that aren't problems yet. I'm being as honest as I can handle it.
Okay, so Bruce, Freeman's been coaching for 3 years now, head coaching for 3 years. He has not been mediocre prior to this season. That's not true. Again, please go do your research.
This is getting worse, Bruiser. It's getting worse.
He likes to mess with me, John. This is one of my guys. And secondly, Notre Dame would get destroyed in the SEC. Tell that to the SEC champion they just destroyed in the playoff. So we'll leave it right there.
So is the argument there that
look, here we go, John. Sorry. Look, a weak SEC. There we go, right? Man. Always moving the goalposts when it's Notre Dame. But that's cool because I guarantee you, had Georgia smacked around Notre Dame, we would have heard about the mighty SEC. Why are we talking about Carson Beck as if Carson Beck was doing some amazing things this year? He was still throwing picks. Georgia still couldn't run the ball. He was still, not an elite quarterback. Notre Dame still has the best secondary in college football. Why are we talking like Carson Beck was Peyton Manning out there? I don't understand this.
Yeah. And a lot of those Georgia people were kind of saying we might be better off with this other quarterback that's a little more mobile or whatever. They all rode that. And then once Notre Dame beats him, it's like, well, we didn't have our quarterback. Well, which is it? The story flipped.
So Bruce, real quick, and then I'll move on. You're saying, I guess, that Carson Beck is better than Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback they had. So you can put it in the chat, man. What do you know about Gunnar Stockton? Do you know that he was Mr. Football in the state of Georgia, which is one of the top 4 high school football states in the country? Did you know that he broke Deshaun Watson's and Trevor Lawrence's high school records? He broke Trevor Lawrence's touchdown passes record. He broke Deshaun Watson's career yardage record. Are you aware of any of that? So you're saying stuff because you want to take shots at Notre Dame. I get it, but you're not informed on this topic, man. Please do your research. Please. That's all I need from you. Beck is a champion. Beck is a champion as a backup. He wasn't a champion as a starter. Nice try. So, all right. So yeah, this Marcus Freeman thing, the NFL, he would probably be remiss if he didn't at least take the interviews to, again, get known by NFL front office people and to get that experience in interviewing, NFL front offices.
Hey, why ruin your career by going to the Bears, man? Like, I know they drafted him. The Bears did draft him out of Ohio
That's true too.
Why ruin your career going to the Bears, man? Like, be a hero at Notre Dame. You don't need those problems, man. You don't need those problems. Why walk into a problem, man? And the Bears ownership is a problem.
So check this out, John. Now, we see what he's doing with the Irish, right? Bringing them back to real, true championship level relevance, right? Again, the cool factor. We hear Rich Eisen, who's a Michigan grad. He's rooting for Notre Dame in this game, but that could be more,
Ohio State,
right? A function of who they're playing against. The enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing. But we're hearing a lot of people saying like Notre Dame has been hard to. Paul Feinbaum said that Notre Dame has always been hated and hard to root for, but Marcus Freeman has made them likable. Yep. So I say all of that to say, that being the case, if he can do that at Notre Dame, imagine the legend he would become. Again, I don't want him to, if he went to the Bears and brought them back to true relevance. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it. I see it down the road when Freeman accomplishes the ultimate. I just think this guy is wired, and he might be one of the few guys that wants to honor his commitments. And if he had a trophy in the case, my answer to this is different, Bruce, because then I'm like, okay, you reached the top of the college game. That is a different. Then you get into, I reached the top here where everybody said they couldn't win again. Now I want to prove myself at the next level. But I think Marcus has the drive to want to finish what he started, get this over the finish line this year or some other year. My answer to this will be different once or if he does that at Notre Dame. My answer will change. Then it makes sense to look for that next challenge or whatever. But I think this guy wants to get it done in Notre Dame.
Absolutely. So real quick, great point, Jay Lamont. Notre Dame played at Georgia with 14 5-stars. Notre Dame had 1. So this is the thing, Bruce. Here we go. I'm back to you again. This is really interesting. So first, the SEC is the NFL. Okay. Now the SEC was weak. Okay. And we beat the SEC champion. We being Notre Dame beat the SEC champion. Okay. But that doesn't count because they didn't have Carson Beck. Okay. Who is not that good. And you're screaming roll tide in the chat. Okay. That's cool. They got beat by a Michigan who didn't have all of their defensive starters, not all of them, but all of their best defensive players, and was down this year. Explain all of this. Is the SEC the NFL or not? Explain all of this. You see what you do? You see what you do? You open yourself up. Notre Dame can't hold a candle to Bama. Well, that's cool. Michigan can, so hold that.
Listen, man, there's always an angle to go against Notre Dame. And look at the playoff run, Bruce. It's like, well, we found out Indiana didn't deserve to be there, and they were overvalued by a weak, top-heavy Big Ten. And then you play Georgia, and you don't get credit because of the quarterback. And then you play Penn State, and you don't get credit because James Franklin has a worse big game record than Brian Kelly. Like, they're going to disregard you all the way. And again, the Northern Illinois thing is really interesting to me. Because you lost to Northern Illinois in week 2, it means all the games we've won since didn't happen? Like, I don't understand it.
Every single game we have played since has been a playoff game.
It makes no sense. That argument
had Notre Dame not won out, they don't make the playoff. Had Notre Dame not won 9 games in a row by double figures, they probably still don't make the playoff. Because not only did they have to win, they had to monkey stomp people on the way to said winning. So they was beating the brakes off of people. Then they were still dominating. They dominated their first game in the playoff, dominated the second game in the playoff. By the way, they dominated the NFL/SEC champion, right? And then they beat Penn State. And now they got to go up against Goliath. So look, we're not gonna argue this anymore with you, Bruce. I know you're coming with the same old lines. And listen, if Notre Dame doesn't win the championship, so be it. But we were in the tournament. I don't know where Alabama was. So just chill, man. It doesn't matter how many years it's been since we haven't won, right? Before Georgia won 2 years ago, they hadn't won in like 40 years. Nobody was talking about that. That's right. There you go. 42 years. There you go. Penn State has not won a championship since 86, 2 years before Notre Dame's last one. Why do I not hear you talking about that? Why not? Explain that to me. Come on, man. Be consistent. All right. Next up, we'll get to this last topic, and this is the one we want to dig into a little bit. We have, obviously, as we discussed, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Ohio State Buckeyes for all the marbles Monday night. Real quick, you heard me run down how Notre Dame got there. Now we'll go into how Ohio State got there. In the first round, they smoked Tennessee. Wait a minute, Tennessee? Isn't that another team from the NFL? I mean, SEC? Wow. So Ohio State beat them 42-17. Then they stomped Oregon 41-21. Then they beat Texas in the semifinal. Texas. Oh, they're in the SEC. I mean, NFL. I mean, SEC. What's going on here, John? What's going on? I thought the SEC was the NFL. What's going on here? Can somebody explain this to me? I don't get it. This is ridiculous. But yeah, so we saw Ohio State go through Tennessee, Oregon, then Texas to get to this championship game. So first thing I'm going to ask you, John, is for your overall championship thoughts, and then we'll get into a little more nuance.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting the two different paths these teams have taken to get here. Interesting parallels with the coaches. Earlier in the year, a lot of doubt about Freeman after Northern Illinois. What direction is this going in? And now you're a game from building the guy a statue. 3 weeks ago, all the Ohio State people wanted to kick Ryan Day to the curb. Now they're game from a statue. So there's some parallels there with the Ohio State, the Ohio State-ness of this on both sides, with Freeman being an Ohio State player and all that. I think that's interesting. Here's the way I'm looking at this. When you look at health, dominance through the playoff, and top-line star talent, Ohio State should probably win this football game. But damn it, Notre Dame refuses to lose. So something's got to give, because Notre Dame is fighting, scratching, clawing. They're down double-digit in the two deep due to injury. They just keep finding a way. So Ohio State should feel the pressure. It should all be on Ryan Day, on Ohio State's side. I get why they're favored. I have no problem with it. That being said, Notre Dame just refuses to lose. So something's got to give here.
Fair enough. So my thoughts are, this is your classic matchup, right? Elite defense, elite offense, although Ohio State has a really, really good defense as well. But generally, I think we see this more as an elite defense versus an elite offense. And how is Notre Dame going to be able to score enough points to win this game? And I think that's most people's general premise on this. Everyone believes, from what we've seen, that anyone who knows anything about college football, that is, believes from what we have seen going into this game that Notre Dame has the defense to be able to hang in there and keep this close. And we're not talking about the old time Notre Dame defense, as in, the last 10 to 15 years, where maybe keep it close for a quarter or a half, and then the offense just gives them nothing. So, they're out of gas. No, we're talking about a defense that, from first string to third string, has guys that keep rolling in, somehow continue to make plays, obviously is extremely well coached, and has made play after play after play throughout the course of not only this playoff run, but this season, to get Notre Dame to the position in which they find themselves now. And so you're just looking at this thing and you're saying, okay, because I know a lot of people prior to the Texas game, after Notre Dame won, were saying, man, there's no way Notre Dame's going to be able to deal with that explosive Ohio State offense. But we saw Texas contain that offense. And even prior to Texas playing them, you and I talked about it when I said, listen, this Notre Dame team contained Ohio State the past two times they played them. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jeremiah Smith, production-wise, were pretty much the same player in college, and Marvin Harrison Jr. never went off against Notre Dame. So I don't see why Notre Dame is, I'm not going to say they're going to lock him up. He's not going to have one catch for 3 yards again, right? Yeah. But I don't see why they can't contain him to the same level with an even better defense and an even more athletic and elite defensive backfield. I don't see why that can't happen.
The Ohio State side, they would say this offense is 100 times better than the last 2 Notre Dame's faced. I've run down this rabbit hole, and that's their response is this offense is operating at a much different level than the last 2 Notre Dame has faced. That's how they would answer your question.
Yeah, no, well, that's true. That's true. But this is interesting now when you break it down, and I'll get to some other stuff in a minute, and I'm sure you and Goolsby have discussed this. It's funny because Riley Leonard against the blitz is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Against just a standard rush and zone defense or man defense, like 3 or 4 pass rushers from the D-line without a blitz, he's abysmal. He's like below 100. So it's really weird. And I'm sure Jim Knowles knows this. So he's going to be hesitant about how he sends pressure at Riley Leonard, because obviously Riley Leonard can escape with his legs and, he can throw it well against the blitz. So that's going to be interesting. Meanwhile, Will Howard, the opposite. When you send pressure at him, he has some difficulty, but when he has time back there, he can carve you up, especially he's got those weapons, right? He's got Emeka Egbuka. He's got, Jeremiah Smith. He's got Carnell Tate. But again, Notre Dame has consistently demonstrated that they have the guys on that back end. And of course, Xavier Watts over the top, single high man. We know he's a ball hawk. We know he can come down and run support. There's nothing Xavier Watts can't do. Quick side note on Xavier Watts. I read this right before you got on with me here, John. He made ESPN's All-American team. So that's cool. Hey, appreciate that, Nick Dean. Thank you, brother. Appreciate. Yeah, so he just made ESPN's All-America team, which I think is awesome. That just, that's testament to Xavier Watts and how outstanding he is, the ball skills back there. And that's the thing. So this is, for me, I was getting to my next question. I was going to ask you, what is the single most important thing that Notre Dame can do to win this game? And I think based on my commentary on Xavier Watts, you know where I'm going with that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame wants to turn this game into the Michigan-Ohio State game. Notre Dame's got to keep the points down, the big play, the chunk plays down. Notre Dame wants to make this a fist fight the way Ohio State and Michigan were, and limit Ohio State being able to throw it all over and jump your bones early and big chunk plays, all that. Howard has faced man coverage only 19% of his dropbacks this year. It's going to be different. Notre Dame's, it's not going to be all the time, but it's going to be way more than half the time. And Notre Dame's going to live and die by that secondary. That's right. And it's either going to get to Howard because he's used to these soft zones where he knows his athletes are, and he can get it to him in space. Right. That isn't all going to be there. So if Notre Dame can do a decent job against the run on early downs and then set this up, that's going to be the matchup. And you're going to live and die with your best unit on defense, that secondary. And that needs to be the plan. Notre Dame wants a fist fight, not a race. Notre Dame ain't going to win a race up and down the field against these guys. You want to slow it down and make it a fist fight in the trenches.
And Michigan, I know you don't like that analogy, but the Wolverines showed you that if you can get in Ryan Day's head and mess with his ego and force him into a physical game in a phone booth, that they can be beaten. He has shown they showed that. But I'll say the difference is that Michigan's defensive tackles were vicious, and even though we have Howard Cross III, who is a very good defensive tackle, missing Riley Mills, I think is going to hurt there. But the other thing is, you mentioned that Notre Dame wants to control Ohio State's run game on early downs, which would be solid. But Ohio State, I'm pretty sure they actually run it the inverse, right? They like to throw to open up the run, even though Chip Kelly, is a run heavy guy. They like to throw to open up the run versus run to open up the throw. So it's going to be interesting. But I will say Notre Dame's corners are generally very sticky. And if they can do that, that allows Xavier Watts to roam even more and come down and help in run support. Xavier Watts and the Don Schuler. So
You want to talk about a big time coaching matchup? How about Al Golden against Chip Kelly?
Yes.
You want to talk about a game within the game. The idea of those two matching wits and coming up with plans here. And it isn't just going to be the initial plan, but the adjustments off of the plans.
Oh, yeah.
This is a 10 out of 10 coaching matchup.
Absolutely. So this is, man, and I tell you what, if we're honest, the Jim Knowles, Mike Denbrock, that's another one.
Yeah.
So having a distinct, I would say, disadvantage personnel wise, because you don't have as many guys on the outside that can open things up for Notre Dame offensively. That's going to allow Jim Knowles, I think, to do some different things. And the fact that Ohio State can get pressure with that front four. Yeah. That's really going to be interesting, man. Freaking, was it JTT as well as Jack Sawyer? Like, those guys get after it. But they can be contained because they have, I think, 16 sacks in the tournament so far, but they had like 5 sacks in the previous 5 games coming in. So I'm sure Mike Denbrock and his guys have watched a ton of film, and they're going to make adaptations in terms of what they need to do in terms of protections. And,
I think the threat, if not the practicality, the threat of Riley Leonard's legs needs to be a part of the game plan for Notre Dame to keep Ohio State honest. Maybe you use their speed, bull rushing ability against them in a way if you manage the run game right. Like, I think Riley Leonard's legs are a bailout that they're going to need. And that's one. Ohio State's defense really doesn't have an obvious weakness, but they have struggled at times containing some of these running guys. And so it's going to be really interesting. But these coaching matchups are brilliant. Like, I can't wait to see the chess match between all these guys.
Yeah. So one of the things that, again, I listened to a ton of stuff. I was lifting this morning in my garage, listening to like 3 straight Notre Dame, Ohio State podcasts in a row, right? Just listening to that stuff while I was working out. And, a lot of them were kind of saying the same thing, is that it's very, very difficult to run to the interior of the Ohio State defensive line. But I'm saying, okay, they're saying bounce it out, but Ohio State has a tremendous amount of team defensive speed, especially in their linebackers and safeties as well. So I don't know. Like you said,
well, you got to run it somewhere.
You have to run it somewhere, right?
You can't bounce it outside. What are we going to do? Run backwards? You got to try and do something somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Here's a question. I didn't think about this. So, well, one, they were able, I think, Ohio State to do a better job stuffing the run against Texas and against Tennessee because their quarterbacks weren't quite as mobile. Same thing with Oregon. Like, those guys could move a little bit, but like I always like to say, when you have a mobile quarterback, for instance, on the professional level, I'm a Ravens fan, right? So Lamar Jackson is the greatest mobile quarterback of all time. And then, of course, he can throw it at an elite level as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is, when you're dealing with a mobile quarterback defensively, you don't have that advantage that you usually have of playing 11 on 10. So now you have to account for 11 on 11, and that maybe could be something that Notre Dame is able to use to also open up the run game for the running backs. Now, as we talk about Notre Dame's run game, my question to you would be, have you heard anything about the health status of Jeremiah Love? We know he was nicked up, and he is the Irish's most explosive and arguably best offensive player. So have you heard anything about how he's doing in terms of his rehab for this big game?
Timing is everything. Right before I went on with you, I was talking to somebody in the know about this who spoke with him, and he feels much, much better. Practicing with the brace more as according to him, maybe the coaching and the medical staff disagrees, more of a precautionary thing, practicing with the brace. But I have been told from people in and around the building that he feels much, much more like himself.
That's good. Well, I'll say he ran extremely, extremely hard in the last game. The numbers weren't crazy, but that 2-yard touchdown he had against Penn State has to be the toughest 2-yard touchdown run I've ever seen. Yeah. That was incredible. Yep. And, it's just beautiful to see. And Jay Lamont in the chat said Denbrock needs to get Jadarian Price going. I couldn't agree more. And as well, one of the things that you've said on your show multiple times, John, is that you want to see the 3-headed monster line up in that backfield with Price on one side and Love on the other side of Riley Leonard in the backfield before the snap. And I think that would create a lot of difficulty in terms of, what's the defense going to do? What are they keying on? What are they looking at? Who do they need to stop? Yeah. And so now I would think if you line that up and you combine that with some pre-snap movement, maybe a jet sweep action or something like that, it would cause a lot of difficulty. Not only would it allow Riley Leonard to see exactly what defense the Buckeyes are in, but it also makes the defenders have to make a decision on what they're going to do and where they're going to go defensively, who they're going to stop. So I think that's definitely something that they should employ. But again, I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm not a coach. I never have been, but I would love to see something like that. And I'm sure I'd like to hear what Goolsby has to say about it. Yeah.
Getting Evans back involved in the passing game. They started to do more of that against Penn State. I'm all for that too.
Yeah,
He's been banged up. The recovery was slow progress and getting back to 100% with your cuts or whatever. That could be something I'm looking for too, man. Get him involved.
Absolutely. That's a good one. Motion love all over the place. Do one of those flick passes to him running at full speed. That could work. Yeah. The point is you've got to pull out everything you've got right in this game. This is the last one. And so I'm pretty sure I'd be willing to bet some money that Denbrock's got some stuff he hasn't shown yet, that he's waiting, just for a situation like this.
This is
it. And again, man,
empty out the load, man. This is all you got.
Right. And I don't think that I think that you have to do things to make this game easier for Riley Leonard, help him better diagnose what he sees or doesn't see. And pre-snap motion is a big thing that helps that, and I don't know how they get the run game cranked up, but if Notre Dame gets the run game cranked up, as we know, they're very difficult, like most teams, to beat, right? Like we heard Marcus Freeman, this was so funny when they asked him in the Penn State game, what do you need to do? He says, well, we need to stop the run. We need to run the ball like that. I don't know why. I mean, of course, the sideline reporter has to ask that question, but that seems to me the simplest and most common sense football truism there is. Run the ball, stop the run, don't turn it over.
Yep.
Easy, right? And so to my question that I asked, what's the single most thing Notre Dame can do to win this game? The single most important thing, I think, is they got to force a turnover or two. We know what it is when Notre Dame forces turnovers. And every single game, like we led the country in turnovers forced, led the country in points off said turnovers. That is a recipe for success. Now, most teams can't live off of that, but somehow Notre Dame has been able to do that. I think it's testament again to the coaching of Golden, the motivation of Freeman, and the level of players of that defensive side of the football.
Yep.
I think Bryce Young too is a guy we need to see an appearance of, really making some game-wrecking type plays. He's got the talent to do it. I'd love to see it. Yeah. I saw an analogy earlier comparing him to a young Alan Page at Notre Dame. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I said, that's impressive. Okay.
Yeah. It's listen, Notre Dame's up against it. This is a really talented team they're going up against. You're banged up. You cannot afford to waste possession. So you're going to have to steal a couple and not give away any on your own, man. That's as basic as it gets.
All right. So let's look at this from the other side, John. I don't know if you've thought about it this way. What's the single most important thing Ohio State can do to beat Notre Dame in this game?
I think they want to get ahead early. I think that is their entire goal, man. If they could get up on Notre Dame early the way they've been doing to these other teams, Notre Dame is not built to win a boat race. They're not going to do it. We're not built to be scoring quick strike and getting 50-yard chunks on plays. Throwing it all over. That's not Notre Dame's game. Ohio State has been jumping people's bones early in these playoff games up till Texas, really. And they did that early and then cooled off. Notre Dame cannot afford that to happen in this game. The longer the score's held down and you keep Ohio State from jumping it like that, the longer that goes on, the more it favors Notre Dame. So you just cannot afford to let them get up on you by 10 points, 13 points, 2 scores early. Notre Dame ain't built for that.
You know what I just thought about as well as you were saying that? If Notre Dame, as you mentioned, can hang in there and continue to hang around and play great defense, how much does Ryan Day really start sweating? Like, we've never seen him in a championship game before. He doesn't know what this is. And in the back of his mind, he's like, oh my God, if I lose this game and I lost to Michigan, oh my God, if I lose this game, how do I go home? Oh my God, my wife is going to get harassed at the grocery store. My kid's going to continue to get bullied at school, blah, blah, blah. Like, all these things will start messing with Ryan Day. And I think you'll start see him really tighten up. And maybe he gets out of character and starts doing dumb stuff again, which is great for the Irish.
Hey, I don't know, man. This guy, all of the pressure's on their side. They are favored for a reason. He is in what, year 6? Freeman's in year 3, and he's still trying to get over the hump. Like, all of this big game pressure to get this over the finish line is on their side. And there is freedom in being an underdog that Notre Dame can enjoy going into this.
Absolutely. Okay, so who's the most important player for Notre Dame in this game?
I think it's Riley Leonard, man. You gotta make this offense cook. Like, he can't throw the ball in trouble. Like, you got to take care of the ball and make good decisions. I have more confidence in Notre Dame's defense than I do in their offense. So I just think he is a big part. We have seen him throw some interceptions that it's right to the other team. And you're like, what are you looking at? Like, you just can't do any of that and expect to beat this roster. So he is a key. You got to play clean and tough football.
Okay, so I have a different thought on this. I think it's Christian Gray. Because
that's a good angle too. That's a good angle too.
Yeah, we know as great as that backfield is, defensive backfield, and we know that Christian Gray has made some huge plays. We know that he can also get picked on. And even if he's playing well defensively, the other problem is he gets handsy and he gets called for these PIs, some legit, some not, right? And so I think that he can be a difference maker, whether positively or negatively in this football game.
Yep. Yeah, I could not disagree with that. And he's a guy that's like gotten picked on and looked rough and then makes a big play to balance it out later in games. Notre Dame is going to trust their back end a lot. And that's just the way it's going to be. And Notre Dame's good. They're going to live and die by that, man. That is their best unit, and they're going to trust those guys on islands. And you're either going to get burned or you're going to win Notre Dame a championship that way.
Absolutely. Okay. Who's the most important player for Ohio State in this game?
Man, I think it's the quarterbacks. I'm not coming off of that. Okay. I think it's the quarterbacks, man. And what is Howard going to do facing way more man coverage against this secondary than he's used to? I want to see him throw into that and have success. And if he does it, good job. Tip your cap. They have the athletes. Good job. But I want Notre Dame to test that guy and make him burn them. Make him do it.
So I'm looking at it again. I'm looking at it from a defensive perspective, and I'm saying for Ohio State, the most important player in this game is either Jack Sawyer, being able to get pressure, continuing what Ohio State's been doing throughout this tournament, getting pressure without blitzing, without sending extra pressure, right, from 4, or Caleb Downs, safety, who he has been everywhere. He's super athletic. He can really help in the run game against Notre Dame because, as we know, Notre Dame wants to run the football. So I think it's Caleb Downs or Jack Sawyer. I do. I never really considered myself a defensive guy. I like defense, but I never considered myself a defensive guy.
I get it.
Until I thought about this. But I think those guys are so key in terms of what they can stop the other offense from doing.
Yeah,
I think the defenses on both sides are going to win this game. I do not believe that Ohio State's offense is going to go crazy like what we've seen previously. To your point,
if Notre Dame keeps their points down, then anything could happen late in this game. You just cannot let Ohio State score a couple quick, easy touchdowns. That means you're in bad shape. So if Notre Dame keep those points down, you're going to be in a dogfight late. Anything could happen.
All right. So we've gotten all that out the way. So let's go here. I know you're an Irish guy. How do you really see this game playing out? I have to ask.
I think my prediction, my write-up for Sports Illustrated, I think I'm going to end up somewhere in the upper 20, 28, 27. Notre Dame finds a way, something like that. I think if you let Ohio State get up over 30, I am not sold. Notre Dame's going to score more than that unless it's special teams, pick 6, something like that.
we've seen they can do all that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they do it often, but you can't count on it and bake it
you
in,
can't,
right?
You can't. No.
I got Notre Dame in a close one, and on paper, Ohio State should win the game. There's something different about this Notre Dame team, different about this group, different about their coach. And they have come too far and fought too hard for me to root against them now. 27, 24, 28, 27, something. And don't ask me how, but this Notre Dame team feels different. And if I'm wrong, I am happy and willing to go down with this ship like the captain of the Titanic. I will proudly salute to what they did this year to get here, and I'll take one last breath and go down with the ship.
Fair enough. So real quick, before we get out of here, I have two more things to do, but let me just say this. If you're here and you haven't already, please go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell. It really helps out a lot. I appreciate all the new people who haven't been to this channel before stopping by to say what's up. I appreciate it. Thanks so much to John. And before we get out of here, I want to play something from Manti Te'o speaking to the Notre Dame team. I was really feeling this when I heard it. So check it out, y'all.
Man, I'm geek, boys. I'm always going to ride with you. That's number one. And with Notre Dame, you either love Notre Dame or you hate Notre Dame. But last week, I'm not around the program, so I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in the meeting rooms. I'm not at fall camp. I don't know the dynamic of the team. I can only see what I see. But I had confidence we was going to win. When I saw y'all walk down that tunnel, man, I knew it was over. They don't make them like this no more, boys. Quote that I always live my life by. And that's a quote by Winston Churchill, and he said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write its pages. If you're in this room, you have one thing that millions of people outside don't have, and that's this. It's ability to write history. You have that. I was able to write a lot of things when I was here. A lot of records when I was here. But there's one thing that I wasn't able to write. We got close. It was a national championship. Coach, you ready? You boys ready? Only you can. That's all we care about is the history that the 2024 football team writes. And when y'all win it all, boy, I'm gonna be with you. We're gonna party. That's for sure. I love you, boys. I'm not gonna wish you luck, because luck is for those that don't belong. I'm going to wish you the best.
Man, that chills right there.
Manti is a very special Notre Dame person and a Notre Dame personality. He genuinely loves the place. And unlike me, he's not a South Side Chicago area guy who grew up with all the Notre Dameness. So it means more to me when a guy like him is so dedicated. He is a true Notre Dame ambassador, and it's wonderful to see.
Drunk Vigo, you are 100% right. I can't even imagine how many pens the Notre Dame bookstore has sold. They're probably making a killing off of Manti Te'o pens. But no, that was an amazing speech that he gave there, and just watching it, man, it definitely sent a chill down my spine, and I want these guys to get it done so bad. Like, y'all know, I try to put on my journalist hat when I do this show. I really do. And to the point of, I'll tell you, full disclosure, I was wearing a Notre Dame hoodie all morning. When I dropped my son off school, I had a Notre Dame hoodie on and all that. I said, all right, I'm going to do the show. Let me change out of it. I'm going to put my UNF hoodie on. I'm UNF alum. I'm going to try to be objective here. But when it comes to this, man, it's so hard for me because I love this team and I love this program so much. And I've loved them since 1993 when I was 14 years old and just really discovering college football, and just, it's different, man. That's why I try to tell people it's freaking different.
Yeah.
I live in Florida. I've been to Notre Dame twice now. I've seen John both times. Just being there, the feeling is different.
Yeah.
I took my son there the last time I went. John met him. He met Ben, and he's 8 years old, but he knows it's different. And just, I don't know. But the point is, if Notre Dame can get this done, it's going to be, I don't even know what to say, but I'll be on with Always Irish all night, partying into the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, I haven't even really thought about it because I'm I am not able to handle the emotion of
That's right.
thinking about what that would be. Because I got work to do and I can't afford to be all up in my feels. I got a lot of important days of work between now and then. I have blocked out any thought of what will happen if we do this. And I'm just trying to take it one day at a time with the content.
Right.
And this is big stuff, Bruce. This is what it's all about.
It is. But you know what though? Quick side note, right? Even I know that we're both huge Notre Dame fans, and most of the people in this chat are Notre Dame fans as well. And real quick, if you haven't, please hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate y'all, and turn on your notifications. But even beyond that, I think this is so great for college football nation, man. It really is, because the entire country cares again. It's not just a small pocket of this country, the SEC and the South, right? Clemson and Bama, Clemson and Georgia. It's not just that. The whole country cares. This is amazing. And I've been watching all these different shows, and they've all admitted publicly that ESPN, who we all get on for being SEC homers, they also love this because this is a ratings bonanza between two of the biggest brands in the sport. Ohio State and Notre Dame, they couldn't have dreamed of something better. Maybe Notre Dame and USC or something like that. But I mean, this is there. Like,
this is pretty big. So I don't know, man. I am, this is going to be big time stuff. And Notre Dame's garnered a lot of national respect with what they did this year. So I think so. This is going to be special.
I agree. All right. I'm going to leave it right there. So before I get out of here, this is what I'll do. I'm going to open up the phone lines real quick, and I will take a couple of calls if anybody wants to call in and add anything. Phone number here is 904-219-8264. It's also scrolling on the bottom of your screen. So we'll hang out for a couple of minutes with you guys, see if anybody wants to call in, give their thoughts. I would love to hear some of the some new voices that I've never had the opportunity to speak to yet, and of course my main man Steve. But I mean, this is there we go, and there's Steve right now. Steve, what's going on, my brother? How you doing, man?
Wonderful, Bruce. You knew I had to call in today.
I know you did, man.
Special guest, the John Kennedy.
Yes.
Blessings to you both.
Thank you,
I'm not going to take up too much time. Objectively, we know we're the underdog. We know what's ahead of us. Of course, everybody and their mama is saying we don't have a chance. Look at these monsters from Ohio State. But Marcus has the ability, he has the chance to let them know, when you line up tonight, this is our night, those 5 stars and those NFL draft statuses, you can shove them up your ass, because Notre Dame can make this a dog fight. This is what we do. It's different. You guys were talking about it. It's special. There's a spirit there. Not trying to get all theological. We do it for the Blessed Mother on that dough, and you have a chance to stick it to these guys. They stole one from us last year.
That's right.
We choked it away. This is our chance.
That's right.
We can go in there and let them know. You thought Michigan punched you in the face? We'll punch you in the face. This is our chance, man. This is it.
I hear you, Steve. I hear you, man. Absolutely. You got anything else?
No, man. Great show.
Thank you, man.
To call in and say, go Irish.
Go Irish. I appreciate you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Caller from Indiana. Who's this?
What's going on, big bro?
All right. Who's this? Who's calling here?
This is Jay Lamont, man. The Jay Lamont.
Jay Lamont, what's good going on, man? I will save your number here. How you doing?
Oh, man, blessed by the best, brother. What's going on, Brother John?
What's going on, Jay? Thanks for always being in the chat. I see you.
You know, man, we got to hold it down, man. I'm not worried or concerned, man. Not worried or concerned about OSU, man. I feel like they riding this wave. I believe they drink the rat poisoning, and, you know, they drinking the Kool-Aid, man. And I'm watching the players, you know, and to me, OSU ain't a team. They're not a team because when they had the award ceremony, Howard wasn't even on stage due to the weight. They said something about a weight restriction. And there's no way that we're celebrating without Riley. The simple fact they let that ride let me see something in that team, being the former coach and the player. You know what I'm saying? If your leader is looking up while y'all celebrating, you talking to Jemiah, the receiver guy, he's feeling himself. Can't nobody guard me on there. Man, they need a nice slice of humble pie. I think we're going to give them a nice slice of humble pie.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Caller from Ohio. I see you. Give me a minute. We finish this call and I'll call you back. Or you can call me back. Yeah, sorry about that, Jay. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, man, I'm just not. My thing is this, though, man. I just kind of, with J Love being banged up, I would see Kendrick Young. I thought that, we would get, because he's more of an Edric estimate than anybody, as far as weight, size, speed goes. I kind of feel like we need a battery hammer, just smacking boy. Yeah, battery ram, just smacking boys, man. That's what I feel like. And got to get Price going, but he just takes off. Like if he just had a little more patience, had some vision, he'd be dangerous. He just takes off, man. And the Neal's and Williams is nice. He just need that extra gear. I'm like, Young got both of that. Put the kid in the game.
So I think it depends, right? So I think part of the reason that Aeneas Williams is always in there is because he looks to me out of the three, like for the most part, the best run blocker. Like he really sticks his helmet in there. He puts his face mask in those blocks. And I think that's a big part of what you have to be on the field. You have to be able to pick up blitzes, understanding where that's coming from, and blocking the run game. So, and blocking the pass game as well. So I think that to me is why he gets more time, is because he's a better blocker early. That's my thought. I could be wrong, but that's what I think about it.
How about this though? What if that pass that Williams caught, went to Price? That'd have been a tutty.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's fine. It would have.
That's fine ways, man. That's fine ways. And it's like with the screen joint, like tell the screeners, find a lane that ain't nobody in. Like why do you make it so you got to throw a pass over somebody every time? Find an empty hole and sit down. You know what I'm saying? Like we leave points on the board, but you can't game plan for Riley Leonard if you try to. Yeah. We don't even know what we're gonna get, so they don't know what they're gonna get.
That's a good point.
So, but he's a winner. You can't game plan for him. Think he gonna run it, he gonna throw it. Think he gonna throw it, he gonna run. You can't game plan for that. He's sporadic, but he's a winner, so I'll take it.
There we go. You have anything else, Jay Lamont?
No, sir. Hey, appreciate y'all, man. Keep doing your thing.
Man, I appreciate that. I'm gonna save your number, man. Thanks for calling. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe.
For sure.
All right, brother. Caller from Ohio. I saw you. Give me a call back, man. I don't have that fancy setup that John has where all the calls line up on hold.
Yeah, man. Hey, I paid for that damn service. It better work.
I know you do. Caller from Ohio. What's good? Who's this?
Hey, what's going on? This is Mark with glasses.
Mark with glasses. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, I'm good. This is my first time tuning in.
I appreciate it.
Great job.
Thank you, man.
Great job. I just want to see kind of 3 yards and a cloud of dust. Keep this offense on schedule. Make it easy for Riley Leonard. Don't make it difficult with incompletion on first down, and then we're really screwed trying to move the ball. I want to see dogs on both sides of the line of scrimmage, but my biggest reason I believe we have a chance in this game was that Freeman video from the locker room at Penn State. They're down 7 that first half. They completely looked out of sorts. Everything was harder than it should have been, and it would have been easy to quit. And they're down 7, and just the way his message and delivery, about it being a fight,
go out there and fight.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like directed at the players.
No.
It seemed like a rallying,
yes,
and that kind of encapsulated everything. Why I love Freeman as our coach. Yeah. Where before the prior guy was kind of almost blaming and throwing players under the bus. This just was completely different, and it was that master motivator you need for a game like this, where you're the underdog, and that's why I'm optimistic. Is just watching that just shoot that into my veins.
Oh, there you go. I hear you on that. The only thing I'll push back on, Mark, is that you say you wanted 3 yards in a cloud of dust type thing, and don't get behind the chains on first down. Of course, nobody wants to do that, but sometimes, especially with a defense as physically talented as this that Ohio State is going to bring and possess, you don't want to be. Sometimes you got to break tendencies, right? You have to, and that's a shock play. You got to go for that sometimes and break things up, because you have to make Jim Knowles think like, oh, wait a minute, what are they going to do this time? I can't go with what I always go with because they go with what they always go with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. I think Ben Brock's gonna have to figure that out, like the
absolutely.
risk reward. But I just think the less Leonard throws, the better we're off. I mean, he had 2 interceptions the last game. He just kind of has a tendency to have a throw every once in a while that makes completely no sense. And obviously the occasional play action pass and like bubble screen, like quick 3-step drop. I just think we need to dumb it down for him right now. And that's what was lacking the opening of the Georgia game. The first 2 possessions, he looked scared, and I wish they would have run him early and often to kind of get settled into the game. So with this being a winner-take-all game, I just hope they hit the ground running and get him kind of settled into the game. But love your show, Bruce. Good job. Keep it up.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks so much, man. I'll lock your number in as well, man. Thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Yeah, John, I definitely agree with what Mark says. I'm old school, run the ball, stop the run. Like, I believe in that with every fiber of my football being, right? Run the ball, stop the run. You will win way more games than you lose that way. But at the same time, you've got to break tendencies, man, because you cannot let Jim Knowles get comfortable in what he wants to do with those athletes over there on the defensive side of the ball. So you got to do something.
It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be a chess match. We will see.
Very. All right, team. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get out of here. I know John is a very busy man. And so I want to thank you, John, for taking the time out to join me, man. You're hard to catch up with, but I really appreciate you being here and, offering your very specific and your Notre Dame thoughts on these topics, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. And, I'm happy to join you and make up for all the nice calls you do hitting my show. So whenever I get a chance, I like sitting down with my man, Bruce. So I'm glad to see the show growing, man. Just keep on grinding up that YouTube chain. That's how it works.
Yes, sir. Is all we can do. For anybody who's in the chat, I don't think there is, but anybody who's here that doesn't know where to find you, John? Let them know.
YouTube, Always Irish, pretty much everywhere, Always Irish. Patreon, Always Irish. Facebook, Always Irish. Instagram, everywhere. Look me up. Google me. You'll find me.
Who are you, Kurt Signetti?
Yeah, Google me. I yell about. That's what I'll say. I yell a lot. He said, Google me, I win. Google me, I yell. How about that?
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. One more time before we get out of here, if you haven't already, please go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell. Really appreciate you being here. And we are out. Peace.